to the relevant people. Thank you. I couldn't. It sounds like a good idea. I just took the microphone to take this opportunity to agree with Colin Bolger. It's not too often we're going to agree, Colin. But I think historically, Jack Mundy and the BLF, who were, Jack was a communist and radical in many ways, but needed that radical activism to save some of our heritage. So good on you, Colin.
Colin and I can
James, I believe, is next, and then we'll go to some other questions. James Cambridge. Yes.
James, I've got to take to the microphone so everybody can hear you.
Question to ask Adam Brown. Essentially, should the user be responsible for the carbon emissions, or should the producer be responsible?
Ultimately, the producer, some users, some big users should be, but I think like the producer, one of the things that we're keen to do is tackle coal and gas are the main causes of the climate crisis, and the best place to tackle that is at the source. We need to stop opening up new coal and gas projects if we're to tackle the climate crisis, and increasingly you're seeing legally a lot of responsibility being sheeted home to the initial producers. Big users, industrial size users, should bear some responsibility as well.
I'm talking on the international stage. I'm talking about the countries. Should Australian coal, should we stop exporting Australian coal when there's a demand for it? And if we don't sell it, someone else will buy it somewhere else.
Yeah, I think we do need a plan to get out of coal exports. We need a stage plan over 10 years for thermal coal and out to 2040 for metallurgical coal. We need to, with Australia is the world's third biggest exporter of fossil fuel pollution, and we have a responsibility because no matter where it's burnt, whether it's burnt here or whether it's burnt somewhere else, it harms Australia. And other countries are not burning it at responsible rates. It is being burnt at catastrophic rates. And one of the single biggest things that we could do is stop exporting it and switch over to other clean industries. The three major export partners that make up 75% of our thermal coal exports have all declared net zero goals by the middle of the century. That means they're going to decarbonise their electricity systems by the 2030s. Coal is on its way out as an export anyway. We need a plan that's going to support workers and communities so that they're not left in the lurch when the rest of the world tells us to stop digging.
Please.
Thanks, Adam. Did anyone of the other candidates want to respond to? Yes, we've got Richard.
I think the idea of having a cost spread across production and the extension of the electrical network and of the disposal of waste is appropriate for everything from solar panels to wind farms to batteries to nuclear. And there are issues with all of them. I find it very hard to imagine that coal, which I think has been running about $60 billion of our exports per year. I think at the moment it's projected to run up to $110 billion with the effects of the war in Ukraine. It's going to be suddenly a stranded asset.
And just have one or two more questions. One over here. And then we'll do you, Xavier.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, for allowing me to ask my question. It's mostly for yourself, Adam, and it's about the last subject that you just touched on then. I've just done some sums in the last 24 hours, and this is just to help everybody understand the scale of this business of exports from this country. And so right now, around Australia, there are 82 ships waiting or being loaded with coal. There are 16 ships waiting or being loaded with gas, and 52 ships being loaded or waiting to be loaded with iron ore. So that's a significant business for our nation. And at the last candidate seminar that I was there, I didn't get the opportunity to ask my question then, but I ask you now. So in addition to that information about the scale of shipping, in 2021, our exports to China, Japan, South Korea, India, and the United States, and that's just the top 5, together totaled in the order of $200,000 million, which is a lot of income for this country and for the companies that are involved. So if your party gained a bounce of power with, say, Anthony Albanese, would you still insist that we stop coal and gas? And if so, how will the nation replace these export earnings and job losses north of a line, say, between Sydney and Perth?
Yeah, good question. And so can I answer it in 2 parts? And I'll try and do it in the time that we've got. Firstly, in balance of power, what we want to put on the table is stop opening up new coal and gas projects, right? Stop opening up new coal and gas projects. We can't put the fire out while we're pouring petrol on it. And everyone from the Conservative International Energy Agency to the United Nations and the world scientists have all said to even meet the, what I think are 2 weak net zero by 2050 goals, there can be no new coal, oil or gas infrastructure starting from now. Like that is the international consensus. So that's what we're putting on the table. But secondly, so let's take gas, one of the examples. Most of the money that they're making, they're sitting offshore tax-free, right? You talk about, it's not this massive revenue earner for Australia. In 1 year, 27 gas corporations made $78 billion of revenue and paid $0 tax.
I agree.
And in Western Australia, they're getting the gas royalty-free. They're not even paying for the product. And they're making, like Shell made $5 billion, Chevron made $12 billion, Exxon made $15 billion, and they paid 0 tax on it, and they didn't even pay for the gas.
Nothing to do with the question.
But it's everything to do with the question, because implicit in the question is this idea that massive amounts of money are coming into the country that we're going to have trouble substituting with other exports like green metals, green steel, green hydrogen. My point is that when you drill down into the data, you look at it, and actually they're taking us for a ride. Like they're taking us for an absolute ride. The West Australian government makes more from car regos than it gets from gas royalties, right? And this is replicated on the national level as well. So the start, like we will not suffer economically with a plan to phase out these exports and replace them with new exports, because we've got the second largest deposits in the world of vanadium, which is a mineral that's going to be used to build utility scale batteries. Let's invest in the processes to dig it up, process it here, and sell it value added to the rest of the world. Like that is how, and I've spent a lot of time this campaign in Gladstone, in the Hunter Valley, going in Townsville, saying we're not against mining. We're just saying we've got to get out of coal and gas. We are blessed with all of the other minerals that we need, that the rest of the world wants to buy. We could be a green hydrogen world leader, which is what our trading partners are saying they want. They're saying they're getting out of coal and dirty gas, and they're saying we want other things. We could be selling it to them, right? But for so long as we keep propping up these industries, and it's not even that they pay no tax, you're giving them subsidies. Like you're giving them $10 billion of subsidies per year out of your own pockets. So it's not going to be a big economic hit. We can create jobs. There's over 800,000 jobs in a plan to get green metals, green minerals, that kind of green hydrogen, things that aren't fanciful that are happening right here, right now. We've done the sums, 800,000 jobs. Our plan that you're referring to, when we stop giving them handouts, $51 billion over the decade, the budget is better off.
Can I ask a supplementary question, please, Adam?
Very quickly, Gordon.
Yeah, very quickly. Why don't, when you become in joint venture, if you will, coalition with Anthony Albanese, why don't you insist that the royalties on the gas go up? Just, you know, Question.
Look, we will definitely be putting that on the table.
Very
We have to, we've got to cost it, the loopholes need to be closed. At a minimum, I think everyone should agree that they should start paying for the gas rather than getting it for free.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Adam. I've got one last question from Xavier. Xavier, do you want to stand up so we can all hear?
Thank you. My question for any of you would like to answer is, after this pandemic, are you going to do to get tourism back to Melbourne and this sort of area? Thank you.
Great question, Xavier. Thank you. Who would like to answer that one first? Colin, you want to? I'm going to put anybody on the spot. Who's going to want to speak to that?
What a great question. So I've been speaking to a lot of businesses down in the city, Flinders Lane, etc. And everybody tells me, gosh, we miss not only do they miss the tourism, but they miss the international students and able to fill jobs like hospitality, waitering, etc. So I totally understand where you're coming from. So the Liberal government is primarily now concerned with the post-pandemic opening up of borders. We want to get things going again. We have done the asset write-off. So basically, you can purchase something, say you're a cafe owner, and then you say, right, okay, to open my doors once more, I'm going to get a new state-of-the-art cafe machine. At least you can leverage that against your income. So, in other words, it's like a good tax break. We have done a number of things in the previous budget to do that, because we are primarily concerned with business. And, cafes are the livelihood of the city, of our area, etc. Bustling cafes, bustling restaurants, we want it open just as much as you. And our investments are exponential in trying to achieve that. Who's next?
Yeah.
No, you go.
Great question, Xavier. I would say, so Labor, if elected, we pledged a $15 billion reconstruction fund specifically for these sorts of revitalisation projects for key industries, and tourism is one of them. It was one of our major export industries, no longer. I've lived all over the world, so I was born here. And I lived in the US, I've lived in the UK. I decided to come back here and raise a family because I think Melbourne is the best city in the world. And I think the more people find that out, the more people will come here. I also think that, as we've got huge resources within the city that we currently are set up for a city where, we've got workers working 5 days a week. That's not going to happen anymore. So we're going to have to figure out how to reconfigure our city in a way that we can put a lot of new ventures, a lot of new features into our city that people will want to come and see, but that also add to the livability and amenity of the city here. And as the newly elected local member, I'm really excited. I will be really excited to be part of that.
It's a really good question, and can I just suggest 2 practical things? One is that we could offer, and we're calling for this, rent subsidies to creative sectors that want to come back to the CBD and offer to sign long-term leases. And the federal government will be advocating for a plan where the federal government steps in and offers to share some of the rent on the basis that you're a creative industry, but you're going to stay for a while, because it's had a big problem in terms of not only attracting people, but also for the residents of the CBD, because it's just meant like a lot of the smaller businesses have just disappeared. Second thing is, a lot of the reason that people, Melbourne's got a big visitor economy, as you're pointing out, and a lot of the reason that people come is for events, and live events have been hit particularly hard by the pandemic, but it's going to continue. And I think people haven't realised outside the sector how much it's going to continue, because if someone cancels for COVID reason, you've got to give them a refund. And if an act cancels, as we saw during the comedy festival, it actually just pulls out a whole lot of stuff from the business of less tourism. We want a live performance insurance scheme to apply for our creative sectors, so that the government steps in and backs it, so that if you have to cancel for COVID reason or whatever, then you're going to be able to get your money back, but it doesn't fall on the performer or the small business. We socialise the cost a bit. That would give a lot more confidence to people to put on shows, because at the moment a lot of people aren't putting on shows. And if there's more shows, there'll be more tourists.
Colleen, and then Walter, and then I'll get
I think sometimes in the debate about what industry and the economy looks like after the pandemic, including tourism, we miss that. Firstly, we're still in a pandemic. Many of us are wearing masks tonight, and socialists have fought for throughout the pandemic the question of workers' safety to be primary, and so actually the many workers who've come back to work in the hospitality and small businesses in the CBD, actually their safety needs to be put first. And secondly, these are the low-paid workers that we've been talking about in terms of raising the minimum wage so that the work that they do, that people enjoy and we value, can actually be properly remunerated so that they can afford the rents that in the city, near where they work, and to enjoy themselves, to take vacations themselves. So we have a worker-centred approach. The second thing I'd say is, as a socialist, a long-time socialist, I see myself as an internationalist, and so I haven't so much thought about that in terms of tourism, but we see ourselves as welcoming everyone, and for the last 20 years that has meant a staunch support of refugees who are fleeing conflict and poverty, who want to come here, being able to come here. Now that's not, unfortunately too often the political parties focus on tourists who will spend money, but we think actually we should be advocating for the rights of people who seek asylum to be able to come here if they choose.
A very good question for a young kid like you. So well done. Your parents must be very proud of you. Now, we're all vaccinated, correct? Okay. Why doesn't the government remove all restrictions on domestic and international flights? We took the jab, we're all protected.
Sorry, are you vaccinated? I thought you, on your Twitter it said you're not vaccinated.
I've got an exemption.
Oh, right.
Okay.
So it says proudly unvaccinated.
Yes, I have got an
So you're
exemption.
proud of your exemption. So it's a medical exemption.
I have got a medical exemption, yes. So we are all vaccinated. Some of us have got exemptions. Okay, so what is the problem in increasing the travel into Australia? So rent reduction, everything like that, yeah, that's fine. But offer some incentives also. Thank you.
Bruce.
Great question. A lot of people come to Australia in normal times for nature-based tourism, and a lot of us are involved in, enjoys nature as well. And so we want to protect that. We want to have the things in Australia that people come to Australia to see, like kangaroos and koalas. We need to still have them in the future. We need to have the Great Barrier Reef, which means we need to tackle climate change. If we protect the nature of Australia, then people will always want to come here.
Thank you, and thanks to our candidates. We put our hands together and thank them for their time. Concludes the formal part of our evening. You're welcome to get some tea and coffee down the back afterwards, or engage with the candidates as you wish. And I really thank you for attending tonight and everybody's help. Thank you. Please do.